This is Pastor Tim Jones. I am the host of Ask Pastor Tim. So thank you so much for joining tonight. This is our 10th episode. We wanted to do something real special tonight. Thank you for joining in with us. I'm going to have a special guest to join me a little later on in the broadcast, and we're going to do something tonight. We're going to do a little special coaching here. I'm going to demonstrate the power of the spoken word. You know, we've heard it many times, and we've seen it quoted. We've heard people talk about it, you know, that the power of life and death is in the tongue. And we have an understanding of that. I often wonder how many of us really use that to our advantage, and how many of us unknowingly use it to our disadvantage. So we want to talk about that a little bit tonight, and want to do something to really show you how what you say, really, you hold the freedom in your life, the freedom to the things that you want, the things that you desire, the life that you want to live, the life that you feel you are called to live, destined to live, born to live, whatever terminology you may use. The key to that is really in your mouth. Now, it's more than just in your mouth, but it certainly is in your mouth. And so we want to talk about that tonight. I am a living witness of the power of the spoken word. I am right now, to this day, living in words, living out words that I continually spoke over myself 25, 30 years ago. And it became a mantra for me. And it also became a way of living, a way of bouncing back, a way of getting back to my strength, was with what I was saying to myself in the times when I needed someone the most. Hey, Hazel-eyed chick, I see you. Thank you for joining me tonight. In the times when I needed it the most, when I needed someone to encourage me and there was no one around to encourage me, I discovered the ability to encourage myself. I discovered the ability to frame my own future and shape my own destiny with what I was saying to and about It is a powerful skill set to be able to utilize. Any and everyone can do it. If you've got a mouth and you can speak, if you've got a mind and you can think, you can do this, right? And you can utilize this power. You can shift, you can change, you can frame, you can reset your life with what you are saying to and about yourself. So we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. Again, thank you for joining. This is our 10th episode of Ask Pastor Tim. And we are going to just continue to get better, and we're going to continue to grow as we do this. My heart in doing these shows is to really have, there's so many voices, so many sound bites that are out there, and I want it to be one that offers fundamental truth in reality and in the midst of the chaos that's going on in our world. I often talk about what I call pandemic fever, the increase of fear and doubt and confusion and uncertainty. Man, we are in a time now when that seems to be the norm, is fear, doubt, uncertainty, on an all-time high. And so there's a need for grounded thinking. There's a need for fundamental, basic understanding of truth. And so as someone who's, I've crossed a certain age and I've lived a certain amount of life, and I've seen a certain amount of things, I've come to recognize that after you have lived so long, it is your responsibility to help others to see what you have seen, help others to navigate terrain that you've navigated, help others to certainly not make the mistakes that you've made, but it's not even so much about the mistakes as it is about how to keep going, how to recognize where you are, how to recognize who you are, how to know who you are, and how to keep going, how to keep moving, man, how to keep it moving, how to keep it growing. I make this statement when I say this to people, and I'm not sure how they take it sometimes, but I say things like, you know, since the day that I made a certain decision in my life, I have not stopped growing. I have not stopped growing, not for one moment. Now, has there been times when it didn't feel like I was growing? Certainly. Absolutely. But even in those times, man, when I tell you that wisdom found its way into my mind, it found its way into my heart, and growth found its way into my life, that's not a stretching of the concept or a stretching of my imagination as it concerns it. I literally have grown through the pain and difficult parts of my life, and still growing through some difficult parts of my life. So I have a real firm understanding about what it means to grow, and how what you say to and about yourself on a consistent basis, how that affects your ability to grow, to overcome the obstacles. I say this all the time, that every person, every human being has the innate ability to overcome any obstacle, endure any struggle, and outlast any trouble that gets in the way of their purpose. I believe that with every fiber of my being. And so that means that regardless of what you face at any given point in time, regardless of how difficult it may be, regardless of how confusing or how dark of a place you may find yourself in at any given point in time, if it is standing in the way of your purpose, you have the ability to overcome it, to go around it, to go through it, to find a way to go under it, go whatever you need to do to get past it. You have the innate ability to do that. So what does that mean? That means that nothing can really stop you from accomplishing purpose in your life. Once you get on a track that's leading you towards purpose, once you really tune your mind and your heart into purpose, you get on a track, and nothing can stop you from accomplishing what you came here to accomplish except you. You're the only one who can get in your way, and you're the only one who can stop you from accomplishing what God sent you here to accomplish. Thank you, everyone who's joining. Tasha Marie, thank you for joining. I think I know who that is. Yeah, I know who that is. Hey. Yeah, nothing can stop you from accomplishing what you were sent here to accomplish. So this whole thing about the spoken word, right? If you have experienced in any way the power of what something or someone has said to you in a negative or positive way, if you have experienced it to a degree that you can relate to the truth that is in that statement or that scripture or that principle, that law, that life and death is in the power of the tongue, if you have experienced that to any degree, can you just type in the chat and say, you know, I have seen the power of words, or I have felt the power, or I have experienced the power of words? Because I want to know I'm talking to the right people tonight as we do this. If you've experienced that in any way, shape, form, or fashion, just type that in the chat. I have seen, I have experienced the power of words. Right? I'm going to give you a moment to do that. I get something ready here. All right. See, if you've heard my story before, you know how important words are to me, and you know how significant they have been in my life. If you've been around me for more than a minute, you have experienced how I not just use words, but how I'm careful about my use of words. Sometimes it seems like to my detriment. My kids used to talk about it a lot. They ask me something or want something, and they come and ask me a question. And they know very seldom am I going to give them a right away answer, unless it is a right away answer kind of question that they're asking me. If it's something that requires thought, I'm going to think about it before I answer them. And so sometimes I think longer than they think I should think, or longer than they want me to think. They're ready for their answer, man, but I'm still thinking about it. And it's not, oh, I'm just thinking, what should I? No, I'm weighing out, because I want to make sure that what I say, I've thought about it as I've got as much wisdom, as much knowledge, and as much understanding that's available to me in that moment, so that when I say something, it does have the opportunity and the ability to produce life. All right. So I see a couple of you have put in the chat there. I've seen the power of words. I want to make you aware of something. And I'm going to tell you a story. And in this story, it's going to show you the power of what I'm talking about. When I was, and by the way, this is Ask Pastor Tim. So that means that I am here to answer questions that you have about this topic. I'm here to hear what you think, what you feel, what you're saying, and offer whatever wisdom, whatever knowledge, whatever understanding I have, or to just hear what you have to say. Sometimes it's about seeing and hearing someone else's perspective, because someone else's perspective many times broadens our own perspective. So please, if you have questions, type them in the chat. I don't have all of the assistance that I normally have tonight, but I'll see it and I will respond to it for sure. So the story I'm about to tell you was when we were younger, when I was younger, and I just started out my career in the financial industry. In fact, I was working as trying to think of the title that I was working under at the time. Financial accounts representative. I was a financial accounts representative. Some people might call it a financial planner. There's a difference. There's a certain designation that goes with financial planner, and then there's a certain designation that goes with financial accounts representative. And at this time, I was a financial accounts representative. We kind of did the same things, but and I had been working on this huge account. Now, mind you, this particular opportunity was one that, you know, it was sales oriented. There was no salary in it. It was all sales. And if you didn't make any sales, you didn't make any money, right? And this was during the time my family was very, very small, very young. I only had 2 kids at that time, and they were 3 or 4, something like that, maybe even younger. And my wife, and we had a home and cars, and we had all the things that young families have. And I had this job, and I had been working on this particular account, man, for a while, for months. And I had even neglected some smaller accounts for this account because it was so big. And I had done a stellar job. I knew I had done a stellar job with the work that I was doing for this gentleman, as well as building relationship with him. Man, we was like best buds. I had done a really good job at building a relationship with this guy. And on the day of the closing, which happened to be a Friday, which also happened to be our the day we had our sales meeting. So this was the last day of the week for me to making the sales. And I just knew this was a done deal. There wasn't even a question in my mind. And this guy called me early that morning and said that he had changed his mind. I offered no explanation for it or anything after all the work that I had put into it and all the time we'd spent together, and all the things that I had done to assure that this gentleman was well taken care of. He changed his mind, which was his prerogative. he changed his mind. And so, man, that was a really big blow to me in that moment. And I had to go to my sales meeting with zero, zilch, goose eggs, right? Which also meant I had goose eggs in my bank account that week. And when you have a young family, you can't afford to have goose eggs, man. You got to be making money. You got to be bringing money in. You got to take care of your family. And so I went to my sales meeting, sat at that table, man, in the office there. And I was just, a lot of buzz going around, people talking, it's usually a high energy time in the office. And my energy was really low because of what had just happened. And a guy walked over to me as I was sitting there at the table, and I tried not to show it on my face. I was just sitting there. I was, I guess, pretending like I was writing, but what I was really doing was doodling and thinking and pondering in my mind. What just happened and why did it happen? What did I not do? How did I end up here? How am I going to tell my wife? How are we going to make it through this week? All of that was going through my mind as I was sitting there doodling. And the guy came over. He had started working there about the same time as I did. And he came over and he put his hands up. He came over and he asked me, he says, Tim, how'd you do this week? And this guy was a military guy. He was really a nice guy, but he was real staunch and real, he could come off pompous real easy. He could come off arrogant real easy. And this particular morning, that's how he was coming off to me, right? And I said, well, I wanted to just ignore him. But I said, well, I didn't do so well this week. And I didn't offer any explanation about it or anything, because I just didn't feel like it. And he put his hands on my shoulder and he says, you'll do better next week, right? And, normally, he meant well. He really did mean well. But, man, where I was in that moment, it came off very pompous, very arrogant, and I wanted to just jerk my shoulder away from his hand and say, whatever, man, But I kindly just thanked him, and I continued to doodle. And as I was doodling, the sales meeting was beginning, and people were up talking and just high energy, man, and I'm sitting there doodling, thinking of all the reasons why I'm going to quit, why this is the last straw for me. I'm going to get up and go and get me a 9-to-5 job or something that I know I'll have a paycheck, even if it's small. I have something so that I don't have to carry this kind of weight and this kind of embarrassment going home having nothing, man, after a whole week of work, And so I was sitting there thinking of all of that. And as I was doodling, these words began to form under the pen as I was doodling. I began to write, I'm not the quitting kind. I've never been. I've invested too much, and too much has been invested in me. If I don't follow my dream through to the end, I'll just frustrate myself again and again and again. I'm not the quitting kind. There's no way I can be. I've invested too much, and too much has been invested in me. I'm not the quitting kind. I've never been. I'm supposed to reach my destiny. I'm supposed to accomplish this that I'm in. I'm not the quitting kind. No, I say I'm not. I am a dreamer. And to that end, I will never stop. And as I was writing, and it was more to the poem, I can't remember it all now. As I was writing, I felt strength begin to come back into my heart and into my mind. I felt strength begin to come to my will. I felt energy begin to come back into my body because I shifted in that moment and began to tell myself something different from what I was telling myself. I was telling myself to quit. I was telling myself to give up. I was giving myself all the reasons why I could and should give up. But right in the middle of that moment, I had a choice whether to embrace these words that were coming up out of my heart or to embrace the words that were coming out of my head in that moment. And I chose to embrace the ones that were coming out of my heart. So I got myself together, right? Regrouped. I went home. I told my wife it was difficult and all of that, but I had the energy to keep going. In fact, I even started getting ideas about how to make sure that that didn't happen again. So the point of that story is this: regardless of where you find yourself at any given point in time, you can make a choice, regardless of how difficult it is, regardless of how emotional it is. Now, that wasn't the worst case scenario, man. You know, I mean, but it was bad. For me in that moment, it was like, man, it was like end of the world stuff. There have been people who've taken their lives for less, right? Because they didn't know how to deal with their emotions. They didn't know how to deal with the thoughts that were going on inside of their heads. And so they yielded to the thoughts that were coming out of their head and didn't give way to or make room for the thoughts that would come from their heart. See, everyone has at its core, everyone has the heart of a champion, the heart to keep going, the heart to overcome. That's who we are, because we're made in that way. But when you yield yourself to the emotions of a moment or a given time frame or a given time period, what you do is it's almost like you water down the power of the words, and you're not watering them down. You're yielding to the negative power instead of yielding to, embracing, summoning the positive power. So I hope that helps you to see a little bit about. I have dozens of stories like that, and not just where it affected me, but where I was able to speak something that affected someone else or infected them with a word that helped them to get through the situation or circumstance that they were going through in that moment. So, compliments and hugs. Thank you for joining. I see you. So what I want to do, I don't see my friend yet showing up here. So I'm going to tell you what I would like to do is I would like to have a volunteer who would, let's see, how can I get this to you? Who would be willing to do a brief little coaching with me so that I can demonstrate to you how something like the spoken word, and by the way, this particular brand, I'll say, of spoken word or poetry that I use, I call it motivational poetry. It's the words that you use to enlighten your mind, to encourage your heart, to strengthen your will, okay, and to raise your spirit. Okay? Those are the four things that motivational poetry does. So you have to have, well, I'm saying you have to have, you can do that at any point in time. But because the motivational poetry is aimed at doing those four things, one or more of those four things, when you're in a circumstance or situation that's dire, when you're in an emotional place, when you're in the midst of anxiety, when you're in the middle of depression, when you're in the middle of sadness, when you're in the middle of low self-esteem, when you're in the middle of poor self-image, when you're in the middle of any of those things, that's when motivational poetry shines at best, if you utilize it and take advantage of it. So what I'd like to do is, if anyone would like to volunteer for a little 10-minute or less coaching session on how you can take a moment or how you can take a word and begin to turn it and use it in a way that adds power, that adds strength, that begins to literally energize who you are, I'd like to do that with you. I had someone who was scheduled to do it, but I don't see they've come on yet. Is there anyone who would like to do that with me? No pressure. If you do, let me know in the chat right there. So I don't mind. I'll do that. I'll take a little encouragement, and I'll bring you on here. And yes, this would be on camera because I need to see you as well as those who are listening and hearing as well. So if you would like to do that, put it in the chat. All right. And if not, I'll keep waiting for my friend to pop on here and we'll talk a little more about this subject. Any questions that you have or any comments that you have, even now as it concerns spoken word, as it concerns motivational poetry, as it concerns encouragement, as it concerns a situation, circumstance that you may be in, you may be looking for or needing or can use an encouraging word. You may not want to do the coaching with me right now, but you can put something in the chat. You can say, I need an encouraging word, or I can use some encouragement, and if you want to give more detail about it, you can. I'll respond to that. One of the things that I do is, in fact, one of my buts, and if you listened to us before and we talk about your butt is your built-in undeniable truth. It's a part of you that shows up whenever you show up, wherever you show up, right? It's something that you can't deny and you can't shut it off. It's a part of who you are. It is a gift. It is a talent. It is an ability that God himself has issued to you to work in this life. All right. I see you, my sister. All right. It is how to be a confident speaker. Great. I love that one, right? Your built-in undeniable truth. It is that part of you that is who it's almost like your secret sauce, right? It's what God put on the inside of you that innately will actually and literally guide you through circumstances once you recognize what it is and begin to utilize it. One of my buts is encouragement. I have a gift of encouragement, but it's even more than a gift because it serves as a unique and fundamental part of who I am, to the degree that when I show up, it shows up, right? So even when I was a kid, people would put me in the place of counsel. My classmates in school would put me in the place of counsel. My mother even put me in the place of counsel because that was a gift that was on the inside of me. And they didn't know that that's what they were doing, but that's what they were doing. They were really helping me to hone and develop that gift and that skill. So let's take this, right? Here's an encouraging word for you. I was reading this earlier today. Feel exhausted. I see them. I was reading this earlier today when Jesus was, and it's in both Luke and Matthew, when Jesus was talking to the ordinary people, not the religious people, everybody else, right? He talked to everybody else in parables. He talked to his disciples and the religious people. He went straight in on them, right? With things that he knew they knew about Scripture, and he would speak candidly about Scripture to them. And but everyday people, he spoke to them in parables, and the disciples asked him, why do you talk to the people in parables? And he made this statement to them. He says, to you it has been given, okay, to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to everyone else it has not been given to them. So what he was saying to them is that, look, you are walking with me. You have a front row seat with me. The word, right? The truth. The one who's come, the only one who's ever come from above. You have this privilege because you've said yes to me. You have this privilege of the front row seat to the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Everyone else, they don't have that luxury. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because you have a front row seat to what God wants to do, to what God has done in your life through releasing you into the earth. I know we often look at our circumstances, we look at our situations, we look at the things that are bothering us, we look at the things that are the negative things or the deficits that we have in our life. We look at them and allow them to dictate how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves. And you can make that choice. But you can also make the choice to look elsewhere. You can also make the choice to look at the truth about who you are, to discover, first of all, the truth, and then to have that as, and not an alternative, but have that as your go-to when you're facing difficulty of any kind, right? Just like I use motivational poetry as my go-to, right? Helps me to return to my strength. What does that mean? Return to the truth that I know about myself, the truth I believe about myself. And the truth that I know and believe about myself is it matches and is in alignment with what I'm saying to and about myself. So when I enter into moments of difficulty, whether it's physical difficulty, whether it's emotional difficulty, regardless of what kind of difficulty it is, my go-to is going to be what strengthens me or returns me to my strength, so that I don't get overly pulled into my emotions or even overly pulled into my head and thinking about, what's going on. No, let me return to truth and let me refocus. Let me reset myself. So encouraging word to you is this. You have a front row seat, okay, to the identity that God has, to the thing, the secret thing that he's done in you. Your identity is one of the mysteries of the kingdom of God, okay? When you came into the world, nobody announced who you were. Yeah, your parents gave you a name, and hopefully that name is aligned with who you really are. Because if it's not aligned with who you really are, I certainly hope it's not opposite, because whatever they call you, every time they call you your name, and if it's not aligned with who you are, man, they're pulling you away from your destiny, away from who you are. Anyway, that's another story. But every time they call you, they're reinforcing whatever your name means. Okay? So your identity is a mystery of God, a mystery of the kingdom of God, and you have a right to know that mystery. You have a right to search out that mystery and discover what it is that God has done uniquely in you. What is the unique thing that God has released into the earth through you? My encouragement to you would be to make the choice to recognize, first of all, that it is a choice. And secondly, to begin making the choice to focus on those things that will pull you into your strength instead of focusing on those things that pull you into your weakness. I saw you said feel exhausted. Feelings are amazing, right? And they're also telling. Okay? If you're exhausted, are you mentally exhausted? Are you physically exhausted? Are you emotionally exhausted? Are you all of the above? Which one are you? You need to recognize which one it is. Okay? It can be all of the above. It can be one that's feeding all of the others. You need to be aware of what it is. If you haven't been getting any sleep, okay, everything is good for the most part, but you just haven't gotten enough sleep, your physical could be driving everything else, any other kind of exhaustion that you're feeling. If you're carrying around a lot of stress, okay, that's emotional exhaustion. Oh my God, it's exhausting carrying stress, okay? Whether it's you're carrying burdens that belong to you or burdens that belong to someone else. Many times we're carrying burdens that belong to someone else, okay? And it's exhausting. So you need to be able to think about, where is this exhaustion coming from, right? Is the lead of this thing, is it physical? Is it emotional? What kind of stress am I carrying? Let's identify what it is. Then you can begin to address it properly. Okay. Once you determine what it is. All right. Confident speaker, right? You know, one of the biggest fears in humanity is the fear of speaking in front of people, public speaking. It's so crazy. I heard one guy say, man, I'd rather face death than to face a crowd of people, you know. And I understand that. I get it. Here's what helps, right? When there is purpose in whatever you're doing, purpose levels the playing field. When you have purpose, when you stand and speak, and your mind, your focus, your energy is geared towards releasing that purpose to those who will hear you, then that takes center stage, number one. Number two, it takes priority over whatever you may be feeling. Now, I get anxious, nervous every time I speak, but it doesn't matter. Okay? And the reason it doesn't matter is because I know the purpose behind what I'm doing, and my focus is on the purpose of what I'm doing and not how I feel about it, or not how someone will see me, or not how, no, it's not on me. It's on what I have to give. And so it shifts me enough to, even though the feelings of anxiety or the feelings of nervousness may be there, I don't give them attention. In fact, if anything, I use them to now really deliver whatever it is that I'm delivering, because it makes me focus on the purpose even more. Okay, so that's just a little shift. And I would love to be able to. I would love to be able to, I don't know, spend maybe 10, 15 minutes with you, coaching you on how to do that. It's a real simple shift. If you were in a speaker's class, part of what you would be taught would be your aim in terms of what you're looking at when you stand before people. They used to teach us to look above people's heads. Don't look at anyone. Look above their heads. Find a point in the back of the room or something like that that you can look at. And then so that you don't look at people, because sometimes people look at people and then they make you nervous, right? So look at something else. That's one technique. I like to look at people. But what I'll do is I'll find someone in the audience, right, who looks interested in what I'm saying, right? And I'll make direct eye contact with them. And I'll use that person as my focal point. If I go to one side and I start talking and it seems like people aren't tracking with me, I go back to that person who I know is tracking with me. And so I use that. So there's several techniques that you can use to really hone your skill of standing before people and delivering a message. But if you're going to talk about confidence, it has everything to do with how you feel about what you are delivering to the people, and not so much how you feel about yourself. All right. All right. Going through a cold and have daily stress from work. Okay. All right. Yeah. See, so you may need to take care of that cold, take care of your body, get you some rest, drink fluids. If you're not on a vitamin regimen, get on a vitamin regimen, man. It helps. It really, really, really helps. So, yeah, that would be my advice. Great feedback. Great questions. Anybody else? What you got, man? All right. Just checking to make sure I didn't miss anybody there. Exhausted, cold, stress. Right. So just a moment about this the stress thing and the carrying of burdens. I mentioned and I said that sometimes we're carrying burdens that may not belong to us. We're carrying stress sometimes that may not belong to us. What I mean by that is, how can I say this without sounding many times I used to be this way. When I was in the 9th grade, man, that may have been one of the happiest times in my life before Christ, right? So much peace in my life as a ninth grader. And it's so interesting because I was talking to my wife about this. People thought I was mean because of the demeanor on my face that I carried a lot. I looked like I was mean for some reason to people. But I was the happiest person ever. And it's primarily because I didn't talk to a lot of people and they didn't talk to me. Right? So I didn't have to deal with and worry about and carry people, right? And so I was virtually stress-free. I had one friend, we hung out, we did our thing, man, and it was great. And then the next year I became popular, and then so that meant more people entered into my life. And inevitably, if you are a human being, we all have emotions, we all have feelings, we all care to some degree. Even the people who act like they don't care, they care. They're just ignoring their care. I'm going to say that again. Even people who act like they don't care, they care. They're just ignoring the care. All right? So, and because of that, many times we can carry burdens from other people's lives. If you hear something that someone else is going through, or if you see something else that someone is going through, it could be someone that's related to you, someone that depends on you. It could be a total stranger. It could be someone at work. It could be someone in your church. It could be someone you saw at the grocery store. You could be standing behind someone in the grocery store line, right? And this person said they didn't have enough money to pay for their food or whatever. And you didn't have any money to give them to help them in that particular moment, right? And you felt this person. It's like, man, you really felt sorry for them. Do you know that you could carry that home with you and that could become a source of stress for you? Because you start thinking about it, and you start thinking about, man, I couldn't help her. I wish I could have helped her. And you'll go through this thing, which is normal and natural to do. That can be a stressor for you. So it's real easy to attract stresses from others. Now, in the world we live in today, oh my goodness. You could be carrying all kinds of stuff that don't belong to you. And then you make it yours because you meditate on it. You think about it, and or you rehearse it in your mind enough till it becomes yours. Okay? So that's why I say be aware of where the stresses and the stressors are coming from in your life. Because when you're aware of where they're coming from, then you can address them. You can now begin to apply some truth to that area. Okay? When you can have an idea about where it may have entered into your life, you can begin to apply some truth, because I promise you that there is some untruth or lie that's attached to or associated with that stress or that weight that you're carrying. There's something attached to it, either a lie by commission, there was a lie that was told, or one by omission. Okay, there was a lie, or rather the truth was not disclosed because it wasn't known. Okay, and where truth is not known, lies exist. Just like where there is no light, there is darkness. Where truth is not known, oh my goodness. I hope y'all caught that. Where truth is not known, lies will exist. Okay, I think that's one that probably you should type in the chat right there. Where truth is not known, lies will exist. Yeah. Wow. Think about that for a second. Let that settle on you for a moment. Where truth is not known, lies will exist. Wow. So now if you take that, right, and begin to apply that knowledge. Now right now, It's knowledge. I just gave you knowledge. Okay. Now it can become wisdom and it can become understanding. That depends on you and what you do with that knowledge. Okay. How do you make knowledge become wisdom and or understanding? It's what you do with it. You research it. You find something to corroborate it, or to agree with it, or to validate it, or to complement it. You look for the truth in what I just said. Okay? It can be true, but you need to know it's true. You need to understand that it's true, why it's true, and what's the source of its truth. Okay? If you approach it from that standpoint and you find the truth that's in what I just said, now that truth will become wisdom that grows into an understanding for you. And that is what you can apply to your life. That's the stuff that changes how you see things and how you do things. That's the power of a word, right? It just doesn't change your life because it was spoken. You either consciously or subconsciously meditate, marinate, okay, rehearse that word until it becomes your own, until it becomes a sense of or source of understanding, whether that understanding is based on truth or not. Because there's a lot of understanding that people have that's not based on truth. It's based on falsity or lies. And whenever you have a truth, that's what people call your truth. You know, your truth and my truth and his truth and her truth and their truth and everybody. No, there's not. No, there's one truth. We all have a reality as it relates to the truth. We either come into alignment with that truth or we've not yet come into alignment with that truth. And wherever we are in relation to that truth is our current reality. You see that? Okay. So you have the right, you have the ability, you have the authority, okay, and you have the opportunity to know what truth is, to discover the truth for yourself, about yourself, so that you can begin to develop language that supports the truth about who you are. So I'll go back to the confident speaker again. So you're either going to embrace, I'm not a confident speaker, or you're going to embrace, I am a confident speaker, one or the other. And at what point do you begin to embrace, I am a confident speaker? Do you wait until you feel like a confident speaker? Because what if you never get to that feeling? Or what if you feel like it today and then tomorrow you don't feel like it anymore? Do you wait till you feel like it? Or do you use the power and begin to speak it and declare it now and continue to declare it, begin to rehearse it and practice it until it becomes your reality? In other words, until your reality aligns with that truth. That's the power that you have. That's the power that we all have, is to bring ourselves into alignment with the truth. Okay? So either I am a confident speaker or I'm not a confident speaker. Right? If you say I'm not a confident speaker, you're probably already doing things that complement or align with that truth, that reality. Okay? But you have the opportunity to begin doing things that align with the truth. And that is, I am a confident speaker. So, yeah. Awesome. Anybody else? Good stuff. All right, we are coming to the top of the hour. I hope you got something real good out of this, man. I want to be a speaker. I was very nervous, but had to speak. And when you did it, was it a total flop, or did you actually do pretty good at it? Did you kill it? That becomes my question, right? What were your expectations? You didn't have time to do a lot of processing. It sounds like, if you were just put on the spot, there's not a lot of time for processing when you're put on the spot. You did okay. Okay. And I wager to say that if I was there watching you, I would say you did better than okay. But that's you saying you did okay. So that's okay. You probably did. You did plan a little. Okay. Yeah. We tend to be our worst critics. I know that I am, man. And I really had to learn how not to be my own worst critic. So, but yeah, listen, if you would like to, to spend some time or have some time, to just have a little one-on-one coaching, as it concerns or centered around, it could be a particular situation, or just could be around a mindset or your current reality in regards to or in relation to a truth. And you may not know what that truth is, or in other words, you may not know, you may not have identified what the principle of that truth is yet. I help you identify with that truth, what the principle is. And then wow, okay, I see that. And then once you see it, now you have that opportunity to now begin to relate to it. There's certain things that you can do, certain things that you can do consistently, certain things that you can say, confessions are great. And you do need to make confessions about yourself, but those confessions really do need to be rooted and grounded in the truth and not just fictitious things. I want to be whatever, right? It can't just be, I just want to do this. Now, can you do that? Yeah, that old thing people say a lot. You can do anything you put your mind to. There is some truth in that. But it's not always true. Okay? Because some things you put your mind to, especially if it's not healthy, or especially if it's going to be to someone's detriment, or especially if it's going to be to your own detriment. Do I encourage, do whatever you put your mind to? No. I encourage, find out what's best for you and do that. Find out what you're made for and do that. Find out what you're built for and do that. Find out why you were sent here and do that. Find out what you are aimed at and do that. Okay? When you're focused on that, now nothing can stop you except you. Okay? So anyway, hit me up, man. Send me a message or whatever. Let me know. I'd like to, I'll do complimentary 30-minute sessions. Really only take 15, but we'll do a 30-minute session, man. And I promise you, it will shift your thinking about whatever it is that you're dealing with in terms of relating to the truth in that particular situation. I'll give you some really easy things to do. Give you some easy things that you can say and begin to say that are powerful, not just positive confessions. No. Things that are rooted and grounded in truth, that when you begin to declare them over yourself, it begins to shape you, and it begins to actually change your energy when you begin to align with the truth. Okay? So again, thank you all for jumping on with me. It was awesome spending time with you in this way. And again, any questions that you may have, you don't have to just ask them during our broadcast. You can ask me at any time. Hit me up in Messenger. If you have my email me. I'm on certainly on here on Instagram at Getting Clear, on Facebook. You can see Tim Jones on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Getting Clear with Tim Jones on YouTube. In fact, if you go and all of the Ask Pastor Tims they live on YouTube. And I would encourage you to, yes, go there, subscribe to that channel, because there's some other stuff on there too, and we're going to be doing a lot of other things on there as well. So thank you, compliments and hugs, appreciate you, and hope we can be of assistance to you and can be an encouragement to you. So again, thank you so much for joining, and good night, and may God smile upon you, and may heaven be your aim and your goal. Good night, everybody.